Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and today I'm going to be talking about audiobooks. When it comes to audiobooks, I do read audiobooks. I read about 1 to 2 a month. I just don't talk about them that much because I started this channel with a main focus on digital reading. But as I'm getting deeper into the channel, I've decided I'm going to start to branch out. So I'm going to start to do an audio book of the month. And in doing that, I just thought I'd talk about how I approach audiobooks and also give you my 5 favorite audiobooks of all time, plus a runner-up. So for me, when it comes to audiobooks, I don't overlap with the books I like to read very much. For me, the books I like to read, I read. And when it comes to audiobooks, I really focus more on books I'd like to listen to. And that means for me, the narrator is always the key. Because so often with audiobooks, you're listening to them so that you can do something else with your hands or your mind or your body. That narrator really has to be on point to draw you into the story. So for me, there are basically 4 types of audiobooks that I get. And like I said, these aren't books that I will generally buy to read. One is rereads. A lot of books I've read over my life I've really enjoyed, but I'm just not a person who really rereads books. I don't know why. I think a lot of it is I've already heard myself tell the story, and when I reread a book, I kind of know what's coming. And that sounds silly, but the imagery and the voices and all that are going to kind of be the same because that's what happened when I read the book before. When I have a book that I really liked and I want to reread, when I get an audiobook, if it's a good narrator, then that helps me relive this story all over again, and it makes it feel like I'm listening to the book brand new. So I love to do rereads with audiobooks of older books that I really liked. Another thing I kind of call Side-Jawns. And Side-Jawns are basically books that look interesting to me, but I'm not really in the mood to dedicate the time to read the book. These might be light urban fantasy. These might be history books. These might be biographies. And generally, whenever I consider an audiobook, I will always listen to the sample to see if that narrator is bringing anything to the table. So if that narrator is bringing something to the table, then a lot of times I'll take a flyer on a book that might not be something I'd want to spend my time reading. But once again, because when you're listening to an audiobook, or at least for me, very often I'm doing something else, that audiobook can help pass the time. And I also feel like when I really like a book and I want to read it, I really want to sit and focus on that book and just put all my interest into that book and not be distracted in any way. The other thing I really like for audiobooks is comedy. I love comedy books with audiobooks. I love comedy productions with audiobooks. I've listened to several of the Saturday Night Live players and their audiobooks, Amy Poehler. I've definitely enjoyed Stephen Colbert's Midnight Confessions. So I definitely like comedy books because it feels like you're getting a 7-hour-long comedy special, because almost always the comedy writer who wrote the book is the one who's narrating it. And the last one that I really like audiobooks for is non-book audiobooks, which is mostly radio plays, books, full cast reenactments on radio like BBC Radio. I love those. I love the full cast. I love the sound effects and everything that go into it in those radio plays. And that's something I really enjoy. So they're not really books, but they sell them as audiobooks, and so I enjoy them. So for my top 5 audiobooks of all time, my favorites, I'm going to start out with the runner-up is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling. I just love that book. She's funny. She's insightful. You know, as a born and bred American, it's always interesting to see her take as somebody who is, you know, in this country and really trying to figure out what it's like to be an American, to be, you know, in this country and how that plays out. So it was just a fun, interesting read with some nice cameos in the audiobook. My number 5 is Bound for the Promised Land, Harriet Tubman, Portrait of an American Hero by Kate Clifford Larson. This book I just bought because I had credits and I had seen a 10-minute video about Harriet Tubman that I really liked. And I just was like, what the heck? Once I got into this book and started listening to it, I was drawn in and just fascinated. The reason this book was so good to me is it's not just the biography of Harriet Tubman. It does follow Harriet Tubman's life, but Kate Clifford Larson also ties Harriet's life to the history of slavery and what occurred with slavery during her life and during the region that she lived in. And it was so much fascinating stuff. I mean, we don't talk a ton about slavery in the U.S., and what most people of all races know about slavery is a mixture of myth, fantasy, sprinkled with a little bit of fact, but we don't get a lot of scholarly knowledge. And this was a scholar giving me the knowledge, and the narrator, she sounds like this old-timey, the narrator is just unique. She sounds like, the best way I can put it is she sounds like a female senator in the 1940s, and she's not doing that to affect anything. That's just how she kind of sounds, and she just really draws you into this book. And she's got emotion and she's got gravitas. It's just a really, really good book. And that's Bound for the Promised Land, Harriet Tubman. I never thought that would be one of my favorite books, but I just really enjoyed that book. Number 4 on my favorite books of all time is God of War. This is a book based off of the most recent God of War game. And once again, I just bought it with a credit. And it is a great read. It's action-packed. You don't have to know nothing about the game, because I didn't know a ton about the game. I mean, I'd seen videos of it, but I'd never played it or anything. But it's basically this guy who's angry at the gods, and he's kind of at war with the gods, and the interactions between him and the gods, and he finds out he has a son and he has to deal with that. It's a really, really good book. It's exciting. This is the kind of book that if I had to drive a long distance at night, this is the book that I would want to be playing. It's good sound effects. It's the narrator is awesome. It's just a good action-packed book, a surprising book. But like I said, when I listen to audiobooks, I focus on books that I want to listen to, and the narrator just drives it home. My third favorite audiobook is that Mitchell and Webb sound, the complete series 1 through 5. And this is a BBC radio comedy sketch show. And the best way I can sum it up is, if Monty Python had a radio show, this is it. This is made for radio, so all the jokes hit on an audiobook. They're just hilarious. Mitchell and Webb, you may not know immediately, but you may have seen or heard of their show called Peep Show, which is on all the streaming services pretty much. And this isn't like Peep Show, but I became a fan of them from Peep Show. So when I saw that they were doing this, I was like, let me take a look. And it's great. So that's number 3. Number 2 is Neil Gaiman's American Gods, the 10th anniversary edition, which is a full cast production. American Gods is a classic, and then you add a full cast production to it. It just takes you right into everything that much more. And then my number 1 audiobook of all time is the number 1 Ladies Detective Agency, the complete BBC radio series. This is hours and hours of excellent entertainment. They take several of the books and they turn them into a BBC radio series. And it's with a full cast. A long time ago, the #1 Ladies Detective Agency came out on HBO, and I loved that show. This, in my opinion, is just as good, if not even better, and you just get hours of it. And I'm a big fan when it comes to audiobooks of longer audiobooks because it's just, for me, it's more bang for the buck. And a lot of times I'll listen to them doing stuff, and just listening makes it last. But you'll see the cast is excellent. The stories are excellent. And that's my #1 favorite audiobook of all time is the #1 Detectives Agency by Alexander McCall, the BBC radio series full cast production. So I just thought the main reason I brought this up is because I'm going to start doing an audiobook of the month in my shorts. So I thought I'd kind of talk about it. I'm still probably not going to be talking about audiobooks when I do my book life or sum up the books I read for the month. I did talk about an audiobook a month in my last book life, but that was a pretty rare exception. Normally I won't really be talking about audiobooks that much. So I guess that's it. This is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.